Hello and welcome everybody. And today I'm very pleased to be joined by Juliet. That's Juliet Sullivan, who is the author of a book which has got it's a great title, What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted, which here we go with the pronunciation, you say it.
Takotsubo, cardiomyopathy.
Which Juliet is going to explain to us, which is a form of it's a heart condition that's
Yes, it's
a
heart
bit,
failure.
yeah, heart failure, little known, little understood. But I think many of us may have heard of the word broken-hearted, and in the sense of we may hear that when someone dies, the person who's closest to them can quite often die very quickly afterwards. Now, we don't know if that is from takotsubo cardiomyopathy, because it does have, as I understand from Juliet, that when you go for a post-mortem, it's disappeared, or
Yes.
the
Yeah.
signs of it.
Yeah. So I've been told by a couple of experts that there's no, in a post-mortem, it does not show up. And that, as far as I understand it, is because when you get takotsubo, the left ventricle, sometimes the right, but mostly the left ventricle enlarges. And by the time the post-mortem is taking place, the heart is not showing the same effects as it did when it was stunned.
Right. So Juliet's book is it's an interesting book because Juliet, as she'll explain, lives in Canada, but she is British, and it's very much written with a British sense of humour, I would say, behind it to make it a little lighter reading, because it isn't a light read. And Juliet's story, which she'll explain, is is a very sad, it's a stressful story, like many of us have. But what it does is, well, Juliet, tell us why you wrote the book is probably a good starting place.
Okay, so I wrote the book because I found myself in hospital in 2023 with what I thought was a panic attack. I had compression on my chest. I couldn't breathe properly. I couldn't really walk. I collapsed on the floor. I didn't have pain as such, but I did feel breathless and something wasn't right. But I put it down to a panic attack, um, probably because there wasn't pain in my chest. Um, and then found myself in hospital having heart tests and then was diagnosed with this condition quite soon afterwards. Um, so the reason that I particularly suffered with this condition was what had happened to me in the run-up. I will just say that this condition is not always caused by a traumatic event. It's often caused by no event at all. So people that I've spoken to have had it, have been diagnosed with it, and can give absolutely no reason for what led to it. Some people have a happy event that leads to it, which is a bit confusing. Mine was very clearly linked to what had been going on in my life up until that point for the last year, which is basically started when I lost a best friend. So she lived here in Canada. I'm in Canada at the moment. So she was a best friend here in Canada. I happened to be in England at the time and got news that my friend had drowned. She was only 54 with 3 kids. So that started about, that's pure shock, as I'm sure most people have been through. It's hard. But then soon after that, I had some issues with my mother, my elderly mother, and she came to Canada for a trip. It was very difficult. I said goodbye to her at the airport. She went home, and 6 weeks later, she had taken her own life. So those two things combined just obviously changed my life, but what I didn't know is it was changing my health as well. And I think that's quite common. I think we have stress and we don't realize how it's impacting our bodies. And that's what was going on with me. It was clearly having an effect on my body. And then it manifested in this heart failure. There were a couple of things that led up to it on the day that I actually had it. But when it was diagnosed, they called it broken heart syndrome, which it kind of does explain what I had. And they do reference it as broken heart syndrome, even though the official name is takotsubo cardiomyopathy. Some people don't like the term broken heart syndrome, but for me, it does explain what happened to me.
Yes, and we had a chat earlier that it isn't belittling the condition at all, but it perhaps makes people understand a bit more about it and it makes you remember. And as you quite rightly said, if you'd put the name of this book, not The Broken Hearted, how many people would have picked it up?
No, nobody. I mean, people maybe that had been through it, but the point of writing this book, the whole reason I wrote this book was to raise awareness of it because I couldn't find anything about it online. I could find a few reports and studies. Luckily for me, I found a Facebook group that was a group of mostly women that have been through it. And I got most of my information from that. And I realized there was a need for a book because I even asked the hospital, have they got any literature on it? And they had nothing. So they couldn't give me information. My cardiologist couldn't give me information. And I just thought this is a condition that so little is known about it that I wanted to raise awareness of it. So I needed to call it broken heart. I needed to have a broken-hearted reference in the title to get people's attention because what's the point otherwise?
I mean, I find it shocking that a cardiologist doesn't know what it is. And the other thing that I found very shocking reading is that you're saying that they put you on medication, but they're not quite sure why they put you on that medication.
They put me on the same medication as they would put a heart attack patient on. And then when I asked, as it says in the book, I asked why I was on it, and they couldn't really give me an answer for it. That is a common thing. They haven't got enough studies to back up the medication side of it. The way I always say about this condition is there's no prediction for it, there's no prognosis, and there's no prescription. All of those things are true of this. There are more studies being done on it, thank goodness. And I think in the future more will be known. But yes, at the moment they cannot tell you why you're on these drugs.
Do the medical community, particularly the cardiologists, or people that specialize in heart, do they agree that there is this condition? There isn't somebody saying, no, this is a wacky backy one sort of thing.
Yeah, no. So I had a few doctors at the hospital speaking to me. The junior doctor that gave me the diagnosis did understand the condition. I didn't see him again. I was referred to someone else. I think he had come across it before, and he definitely wasn't dismissive about it, but a little bit dismissive, as in, "Oh, you'll be fine. Your heart's fine." And then I have spoken to other cardiologists and health professionals who have recognized it. It is recognized. And in fact, I spoke to a cardiologist in the States a few weeks ago, and I found him by researching, specialists in the condition. I could only find one in the whole of Washington. So I'm very close to Washington State. And I could only find one. I'm sure there's more, but I could only find one. And I spoke to him and he said, actually, I'm giving a talk tomorrow to a group of doctors to tell them about this condition. So they've been through their training, they're practicing, and they still don't know about it. So it's taking people within the profession to make other doctors aware of it. So I think there is, oh, and my own GP actually, who's young and lovely, female GP. I have no complaints about her, but she did admit to me that she had never dealt with it before and had never heard of it, and she had to look it up. So not her
Yeah, and
fault.
I mean, I have great sympathy for GPs on the basis they're meant to know everything. And
Everything.
I suppose if it's something that people don't know about, how many times has it been undiagnosed and put down as anxiety or something else?
Yeah, exactly. That's why awareness is so important, because I know that people are going undiagnosed. I just know it because I didn't want to recognize that I had something wrong with my heart. I was in denial, complete denial. I had these symptoms the day before. I assumed I was having a panic attack, even though I've never really had panic attack. I have had some sort of panic attack, but nothing like that. But assumed that that's what I was going through. And then the next day, even when I was on my bedroom floor, could hardly speak, could hardly breathe properly, still wouldn't accept that it was a heart problem. So I'm certain there'll be other people out there that have had experience of some of these symptoms and not been able to put it, or not even thought about looking at their heart. And it also happens to younger people. It's not there is a big demographic of postmenopausal women that have this condition, is what they know at the moment. But there have been incidents of children, teenagers, young adults, and men. So it's not just a female thing.
Is the importance of, I mean, this might sound like a dumb question, but the importance of understanding what it is so that people don't mistreat it as just being anxiety and treating it, this is a heart condition, which means you now need to go into full looking after your heart properly.
Yes. So I had a question I interviewed Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who's a cardiologist, a very well-renowned cardiologist in the UK. Um, and I said to him, if I suspect I'm having another one, why would I go to hospital? Because in actual fact, I didn't really get any treatment. They didn't actually know what to do with me. They kept me in for 6 days. They gave me all the tests, thankfully, to rule out heart disease. And they put me on those drugs. Um, but I didn't get any real treatment for what I have, takotsubo. So he said it's extremely important you go to hospital if you suspect you're having one of these, because what happens is the heart, the ventricle, left ventricle or right sometimes, but the left mainly enlarges and restricts blood flow to the rest of your body. And so that can be potentially dangerous. So you do need to go to hospital, and you do need to get them to look at everything. So I had it all. I had the ECG, I had the cardio, not the cardio, the echocardiogram, and then later the heart cath, which is the angiogram. Um, they need to rule out what's going on, or
Yeah.
diagnose what is going on.
And as sort of a little aside before we go back into symptoms, because I think it's important perhaps for you to talk about symptoms. One of the things, well, I'm going to say the word octopus. I mean, I found that, please tell the story about, what is octopus and how it's a bit
Yes, because there is
spooky.
there is a picture of an octopus on the front of my book, which might
Yes.
be a bit confusing. So the octopus represents an octopus trap in Japanese. So in Japan, an octopus trap is called takotsubo, and the condition is named after an octopus trap. And the reason for that is the doctor that named the condition was the first person to recognize it and recognize what had caused it and what was going on with the heart, is a Japanese doctor. And he noticed that the heart takes on the shape of this octopus trap, takotsubo. So that's why he named it that, takotsubo syndrome or cardiomyopathy.
But your
Oh,
mother,
my mother. Oh, the octopus reference. Oh, yes. Yes. Well, so my mother was here in well, over Christmas and the January of 2023. And we had a difficult relationship, uh, always, but she was elderly, and she was sober after being an alcoholic for many years. Um, she was a difficult woman. Um, so we would frequently butt heads. And one of the days that we had a little bit of an argument, um, I suggested that we have a safe word. So I said to my mum, let's have a safe word. And if one of us feels like we're getting upset with the other one, we'll say this word and it will instantly calm us down. And I can't remember if it was me or her, but one of us came up with the word octopus. And this was months before I actually had my octopus disease. So it was a very strange coincidence. And, I did put it in the book because it was, I remembered it as I was writing the book, and I actually couldn't believe that that had happened. The word was octopus. Where did that come from? I've got no association with octopus at all, octopi.
So you mentioned that you had symptoms the day before you had what you thought was a panic attack. And what were those symptoms?
So I joined a suicide bereavement group, support group, and I was at that group, and I started to get palpitations. They were the first sign of anything going wrong. So just my heart beating, which had never happened to me before, really fast. Um, it was taking my breath away. So much so I had to sit down and compose myself. But because I was at this group, surrounded by people that had lost people to suicide, I was very aware that I didn't want to make a fuss. So I got in my car and I drove home, and I said to my husband, I just don't feel right. That's how I felt. It just didn't feel right. Um, I had a bath, I had a glass of wine, and I took a sleeping pill, um, and slept. And I slept thinking that I went to sleep thinking that I had just had this panic attack based on being at this suicide bereavement group. So in the morning, I woke up and I got out of bed. And from that moment onwards, I felt this compression on my chest. The palpitations weren't there, but I felt tightness across my chest. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And I had this weird sense of doom. I can't explain it any other way. I just felt like something awful was going on. And yes, I had been to that support group the night before, and also that day before I'd attended my mum's inquest remotely. So it was in England, I was in Canada. I did it by Zoom. Um, I had to get up really early to do it. I sat there for 2 hours, watched it. So all of that had an impact on me. So obviously I thought I was having a panic attack because I'd put myself through all of this. Um, so I didn't know that this sense of doom was something that a lot of people that I spoke to that have this condition also experience. Can't explain it. It's the weirdest thing. It's like your body is talking to you.
So do you think, people are listening to this and they think, gosh, I can kind of relate to all of that. Is that something that you would suggest they could go and ask their doctor? Well, maybe the doctor wouldn't know about it, but suggest it to their doctor. It could be this, or
I think
what do you
yeah, if
think?
somebody's having repeated experience of these kind of conditions, um, I would definitely talk to a doctor. And if they don't know about it, then maybe mention it and say, is it possible that it is this? And of course, if they don't know what it is, then it's their job to investigate it. The trouble is with this thing is when it hits you, the heart does enlarge and restrict the blood flow. But as the doctor told me when I had this, when I was first diagnosed, it's a temporary condition. So let's say somebody has had this in the past and has felt these symptoms, and it's maybe 3 or 4 months down the line, then the chances are their heart has gone back to normal on its own. And there's nothing they can do to make the heart go back to normal anyway. But the danger is, as I said, if they're having the attack and the heart is enlarged and it is restricting the blood flow, then that is potentially a problem. So it's a difficult one. It's if you are experiencing that and you clearly can't pinpoint what's causing it and why you feel like that, then yes, you need to go. And I would say not go to the GP. I'd say go to emergency or A&E, and ask for all the tests. And if you have to mention the condition, mention it. A lot of the people I've spoken to have had to be their own advocates when they've been in hospital or in a medical setting. They've had to push for it and they've had to talk about it and they've had to mention it, particularly people that have had more than one of these.
And how has it changed your life? Health-wise, what have you done to, hopefully prevent it happening again, or?
So when I left hospital, I was discharged and the doctor said to me, the only advice we have for you is to go and live a life without stress. That's all they could suggest.
Easy.
So easy. Yeah. I mean, as I said in my book, I don't even know how to do that. It's not possible. But I mean, you can minimize stress, I guess, and you can minimize your reaction to stress. I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at that. I'm quite reactive. So if I get in a stressful situation, I still am finding it difficult to manage that. I do try and practice mindfulness when I can. I try and do yoga nidra, which is the one that just kind of calms your nervous system down. So it's not an actual physical yoga, it's something you would do to help you sleep, or relax. I think those are both good things. I think swimming is great for stress relief. I really believe in swimming and walking. Other than that, there's not a lot you can do to avoid it. I mean, I have put recipes, heart healthy recipes in the book because I just believe in looking at, we all need to look after our heart and we all need to have some information on how to do that, whether it's, stress relief or avoidance, and not drinking or smoking, and obviously what you eat. They don't necessarily relate to takotsubo because we don't know what causes it. So all the doctors I spoke to said that we don't know if diet plays a part. But I try and eat healthily as much as I can. And as I mentioned in the book, I do still drink wine, because I like it. And that is a stress relief for me. So I find that works. I just don't drink to excess like I used to.
Yeah, I think it with stress is very much actually finding out what works for you yourself, and it's not necessarily looking what makes me less stressful. I think sometimes it's about go and find something that makes you in your happy place, and by
Yeah.
default, you will decompress, one would hope.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I now try and walk every day for an hour, because I know that decompresses me. I know that I do a lot of thinking when I'm walking. I get a lot of the stuff that I'm processing in my brain out while I'm walking. So that works for me. As does swimming. I just don't get to do it as much. But you just have to, like you said, you have to figure it out. You have to work out what works.
I have to say, I find swimming, I used to swim a lot, and I would get stressed because I'd count, how many lengths do I have to do for a mile? And I'd keep thinking, oh, have I added some or have I taken some off? So I'd end up thinking I actually did more just in case I cheated myself. I would find it really stressful, which is ridiculous, isn't
Oh, well,
it?
don't do that then. That doesn't work for you. I just think if you can shut your brain down while you're swimming, then and stop the counting, because I've done that as well. I just think if you can just kind of let it be what it is. I love the fact that it just completely seems to relax my whole body and mind. Having said that, I did a cold water swim on New Year's Day this year in the Pacific Ocean,
My goodness.
and I did not feel well afterwards. And then
No.
I've since found out that it's not great for women to do cold water swimming. So I'm not going to do that again.
Yes, and I think you've got to be very careful with all of these things they are extreme for sure, and it doesn't
Yeah.
work for everybody.
No, that's right. I did ask Dana Dawson, Professor Dawson, who I interviewed for the book, who's a star in takotsubo. She's just an amazing woman. And I did say to her, I've got a zip lining trip booked soon, and I don't know if I should do it because I feel like that's putting unnecessary stress or trauma or, you know, a rush of adrenaline. And she said, is it going to make you feel happy? You know, is it going to be a positive experience? I'm like, well, yeah, I don't suppose you'd do something like that unless you were thinking that. And she said, well, there's no evidence to suggest that something like that can cause an event. And so I did do it, and it was quite soon after I'd had the event, and I was absolutely fine. But for the next person, if that was going to cause them stress and worry and, you know, that trauma response, then no, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the take home is really that we're just trying to, we're not just, it is all about trying to highlight what the condition is and really trying to say to the medical community, please have a look at this more, just to
Yeah.
make sure that people are aware of it, along with looking at what future sort of research can be done in the area.
And there is research being done. Professor Dawson, for instance, has just got funding for a new study. And I know there's stuff going on in the States as well. And yeah, I think it's up to GPs as well as cardiologists and heart specialists to try and understand it more.
Yeah, well, Juliet, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure to meet you and to hear about broken-hearted condition.
Thank you very much. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.